Hi everyone that's joining me for this first ever live that I've done. This is a bit of a test run before we get through to hopefully doing this on a weekly basis. So if anyone is watching that live, I can see 3 people are on it at the moment, so that's awesome. If you can let me know if the audio is working, just leave a comment on there because I have no idea if it is or not. So yeah, so what I'm hoping to do is, like I said, do this on a regular basis. I'm not sure whether it's going to be Wednesdays or Sundays at this stage. So leave a comment on what would work best for you. But I'm hoping to do it weekly, and I'm just going to talk about everything: personal finance, tax related, business related. So hopefully it will turn into a bit of a Q&A session. So I'd love for people to be able to leave questions through it. Hopefully I'll be able to promote that beforehand and get people to leave questions in the lead up to it, whether that's through Instagram or send me a tweet or chuck a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and I'll be able to answer some of those questions as we go along. So, yeah. So, I will talk about a little bit of where things are at the moment in the whole finance space. So, at the moment, as a lot of my followers are interested in cryptocurrency, that's something that's really going off at the moment. So, it's something I do want to talk about because, especially when it comes to tax, there's a lot of ways people can get caught out. And I've actually had quite a few conversations with people this week that have discovered me through YouTube, and some really interesting different situations I've come across. So I've come across people that have just started in the space and have only got into it the last month or so and have made a little bit of money, and they might have made under $1,000 and are freaking out about what they're going to do tax wise. And then I've come across other people that have turned small amounts, $10,000, and they may be sitting on over $100,000 now. So there's a lot they've got to consider. So it is an area I want to talk about more and make some more videos in, because as we come up to tax time, there's a lot of different things that we can do to help reduce tax legally. So that's something I do want to talk about and feel like it's a really good time to make videos, because there's some things that you can only do before 30th of June that might actually help you when it comes to tax. So I'll be talking about those kind of things and go through some different scenarios on things that you can actually do that might save you some tax or delay tax into another year. But with anything that I do talk about, you've got to remember that everyone's situation is going to be different. So what advice I give in a live thing to someone, you've got to remember that you need to go away, do your own research, and see whether that's actually going to apply to you. So back what I was talking about with the crypto stuff is that things have gone up a lot lately, and you've got to be so careful. So there's a question here which let's see how I can go about highlighting that. So is it wise to invest in cryptocurrency? So there's something you've really got to consider. At the moment, we're at a bull market. So what that means for those that aren't aware is it means prices are at highs. So I think Bitcoin may have actually hit an all-time high in the last day or so. So you've got to be very considerate that, are you going to invest when you're right up here? Because sometimes when you're starting to hear it hit mainstream, it might be too late to invest. So it's not going to be too late if you believe in this in a long term. But if you are investing right now in things like cryptocurrency, be aware that we are at a high, and don't freak out then if it drops. So this is what happened back in 2017. A lot of people invested. That was the first time I invested in cryptocurrency. So what happened is that people invested, and then the market dropped. Everyone freaked out and gone, oh, it's a scam. They lost a lot of money. And then it really put them off investing in anything. So, yeah, that's a really good comment here. Like any investment, you don't want to put in what you're not willing to lose. So obviously, whenever you're making an investment, you're wanting to make a profit. That's why we invest. It's why what we want our money to grow. But if you're investing in things that you believe in, don't stress if they drop, but don't invest if you can't afford to lose that money. So I've talked about it before on my channel, is that's why it's so important to have emergency funds, because if you go and invest money and you've got those backup funds, it gives you that peace of mind that you're not going to be searching for money to pay bills, and you don't want to be selling your investments to have to cover your bills. The money you invested should be there for the long term. So yeah, so back to what we're talking about with cryptocurrency is that I can't tell you whether it's wise or not. That's for you to do your own research on, of course. But you've just got to be considerate that when things are at all-time highs, that is a bit of a red flag that, are you investing at a time that is right for you, or you better wait for the market to dip a bit. But like anything, you could wait and wait and wait, and the market may keep going up. So yeah, it's a bit of an unknown, but it's definitely something I do want to talk about more. And mainly because I think there's some pros and cons to crypto, definitely. And I don't know if it will be around in 10 years' time, but if it is, there is a lot of money to be made there potentially, but it is a very risky investment. So it's much more much more risky than shares, I think, at the moment. Like the volatility is just huge. So if you look at something like Ripple at the moment, it's bouncing back from where it was a few years ago, but the speed that it's increased is just unlike anything else. But then that means that it can decrease just as quick. So something like Ripple, I think, is at around the $2.30 to $2.50 Australian at the moment. Sorry for anyone that's watching this overseas. I know the price is in Australian dollars, but this was up at around $4 in 2017. So a lot of people have bought in at higher prices. So it wouldn't surprise me that if people were to go and sell now because they've hit their break-even point, they may want to get out. They may be scarred by the amount that it's dropped in that time. So that's just another thing that you've got to consider, that these things that there may be a lot of people holding positions that they just want to get out of. So I think it's definitely a risky area, and something to consider. So I've got a question here from Jack. So what is the best strategy when you're wanting to do regular investments in shares? So I suppose there's a couple different options here. You can try and time the market. So that's where you're going, okay, I'm going to wait for a crash. A bit like what I've just talked about with the crypto stuff, is that you're going to wait and go, oh, when it drops, that's when I want to invest. But like I said, that's always risky, because unless you're into fundamental analysis and technical analysis and you can really pick markets and you're reading charts and stuff like that, and again, that's still going to be risky. No one knows, otherwise we'd all be rich. But that's always a risk. So when you're trying to time the market, what you're trying to do is, okay, it's going to drop, I think it's going to go up, but then you may want to sell a bit there. So that's a harder thing to do. So what some people like to do is like a dollar cost averaging. So this is where they invest a regular amount into the same asset, and they just do it on a regular basis, and therefore it's not going to be affected by trying to time the market. So they might go, all right, I've got $1,000 a month I want to invest, and I want to invest that into a broad ETF that covers the market. So they might go, okay, on the first of each month, I want to invest my $1,000. I'm going to buy no matter what the price is. So, and it doesn't have to be an ETF. We could do that with crypto. We could go, okay, Bitcoin, I'm going to buy $1,000 on the first of every month. Doesn't matter what the price is, I'm just going to buy it. And obviously, when the price goes up, your investment will go up. When it drops, you're still going to buy. But what's going to happen is that if it drops down, you're actually going to buy more Bitcoin with that investment. So obviously then when the market goes up, you'll buy less of that. So if you're buying shares at $100 each and you've got $1,000 to invest, you obviously buy 10 shares that month. Now say those shares go up to $200, you're only going to be able to buy half the amount, but obviously your initial investment would have gone up. So it can be a simpler way to regularly invest in shares. So again, what strategy is best? No one knows. You can do some research, and I'm sure you'll find plenty of studies on it. But yeah, there's definitely a couple main ones I'd say of trying to time the market versus, say, a dollar cost averaging technique. So I'm just saying, look, I've got a couple of questions coming in, which is really awesome. So I really appreciate the support, especially maybe a few of those family members that are out there helping. So I've got here, do I have to pay tax if I sell a cryptocurrency and then buy another? So this is something I've discussed actually multiple times in the last week, and it's probably something really important as we lead into tax time, is that the way cryptocurrencies work currently is if you sell a cryptocurrency and buy another cryptocurrency, that is a capital gains event. So unfortunately, it doesn't just occur when you cash out into Australian dollars, for instance. It's going to happen when you sell that currency and go buy another one. So if you've got Bitcoin, you go, no, I don't want that. I want to change that into Ripple. I think that's going to go up. And you sell that Bitcoin and buy Ripple with it. That is a capital gains event. And unfortunately, you'll have to pay tax on that in this year. So it is something to consider as we're getting closer to June, is that what strategy you want to take. So this is where you don't want to get caught out and you go and sell something that's in a good gain position now. So say you have bought something like Ripple and you've made 100% gains on it. And you go and now say, okay, I want to take my gains, but I want to now invest them into Bitcoin because I think that might be more stable, for instance. So you've got to be careful, because that will create a capital gains event, and you're going to have to pay tax on that in this 2020/2021 financial year, even though you might not actually have that physical cash, because unfortunately, I don't think the ATO is currently accepting cryptocurrency as payment of a tax bill. So it's something you've got to consider, is that when you make that sale, that's going to be a tax bill you potentially may have, and that may eat into your capital. And also you've got to consider then, is that are you going to miss out on potentially the 12 months capital gains discount? So if you've held for 11 months, you've really got to consider that, is when do I sell, and when am I moving? Because a lot of people in crypto are readjusting their portfolios, not realizing that that's actually creating tax events. So you've just got to be careful in that case, that when you're creating those tax events, that you understand what your overall tax position is for that financial year, and be smart that maybe June might not be the best time for you to sell something, or maybe it might be. It might be a good time for you to realize some losses on assets that you don't think are going anywhere, and they may offset some of those gains you've made on other assets. And that can go across. That might be, you might have got some good gains on some shares. You might be holding some crypto assets that are sitting in a loss position, and you might sell them so you can offset that. So you've just got to be careful with some of that timing to play it a little bit smart. So I've got another question here from Jack. So is there a minimum regular amount you recommend to invest? Look, I don't recommend anyone to invest. That's not something I can actually recommend. But I suppose it depends on your overall situation, on how much you're willing to lose. Like we had that comment before of don't put in what you're willing to lose. But compound interest is a crazy thing when you get your head around. So go and watch a couple of the videos I've done on that where I talk about that. But when you're regularly investing, that's consistently, like I said, if you're doing like a dollar cost averaging, if you're investing $100 a month still, it's still better than nothing. And have a look at that over the long-term period. So when it comes to minimum amounts, I don't think there's a minimum when it comes to actually making money. So I don't think there's a minimum to go, oh, look, if you're not investing $500, what's the point? But you want to be consistent with it. And that's this is a good comment here that comes, and really loving your work here. I think it's Chris from memory. But yeah, the consistency is king. So as back to Jack's question here of minimum amounts, when you're looking at a broker, there will be some that will have a minimum amount. So from memory, with something like CommSec, I think it's a $500 minimum first investment with a particular share. So say you want to invest all your money in one particular share, it's $500 minimum, I think, that first buy. But then I think it might only be about $100 minimum if you were to buy that same asset again. You've now got options like CommSec Pocket, where you can buy shares ETFs through CommSec Pocket, and you can do that with really small amounts. It might be $50 or something like that. It might be less. But that's a good point, Jack. So yeah, the fees is where you've got to work out. That's the downside to smaller investments, is things that have brokerage or fees attached are obviously going to chew into your investment. So I think CommSec Pocket is $2 per transaction. So if we're talking $1,000 investment, obviously $2 is a micro percentage of that. So when you're then doing a smaller investment, then you've got to consider, okay, that's going to be a higher percentage. So obviously on a $50 investment, suddenly that $2 fee is going to be a lot more of your investment is, and that's obviously going to chew into your return. So it's something you've really got to consider, is what how regular investing and what the platform is. Is this platform going to charge you brokerage, or are you going through something? Now, can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's a few platforms now in Australia where you can get free brokerage on ETFs. So with things like that, you're not paying the brokerage, and therefore you can regularly invest. Vanguard, I'm pretty sure that has some different options there, and it's probably a bit for people that are investing a little bit more than really micro amounts. But you can invest on a regular basis through there, and you're not going to get hit with that brokerage all the time. So brokerage definitely hits you. So you don't want to be investing every day $2 and lose all that in fees. So it is something to consider. Yeah, Chris has got a good point there, saying about, so you've got things like CommSec Pocket, Spaceship, and Raise that, a bit like I've talked about, is that those things are built for that micro investing where you want to invest on a more regular basis. And people sometimes are using those platforms to invest on a little bit of a regular basis to start with, build up a bit more of a portfolio, and then they may move those investments into something that allows them to have more selection. So a lot of these are limited. Concept Pocket, I think, has about 7 different ETFs you can invest in. Spaceship and Razor more, because they've got a range of different investments that they hold, but they've got a couple of different options that you can actually invest in. But what people might do is they might go, okay, I want to build up my Spaceship portfolio there to a couple of grand. I might want to withdraw that, again, consider tax complications to that, and then move that into my own ETF that I picked through Vanguard, or I want to go diversify that into cryptocurrency, for instance. So yeah, that's definitely an option if you want to do that regular investing. So I've got a question here of, do you know where I could learn to do taxes? I'm rather young but keen on learning early. That is awesome. That is awesome that you're trying to get your head around it early, because it's something that I knew a little bit about while I was going through school, of just taxes in general. But it was something that I'm really glad that I ended up going into study, because pretty much 99.9% of people across the world are going to be paying some form of taxes. So having a good understanding of just the basics really will help you. So it means that you could potentially do your own return, or just have a better idea of different strategies you could put in place to potentially reduce tax. And it's one of these things, any professional services business normally is quite high charge rates. So it's going to cost you when you go to an accountant, no different when you go to a lawyer. So if you've got some knowledge and you can do your own research, it'll make it much more cost efficient for you. So, and I also know as an accountant myself, when I'm dealing with clients, I love dealing with clients that are switched on, that know a bit about taxes, because one, I find that more enjoyable to deal with people that are talking on those high level things, and you can do that higher level strategy with them. And knowing that if you put that more complex strategy into place, it means that they actually might implement it successfully, which is much more rewarding for me in my job. So it depends what country you're in. I'm not quite sure where you are. I don't know if I can quite pronounce your name, but yeah, it depends what country you're in. Honestly, do some research online. Just start Googling tax things in your country. So if you're in Australia, go on the ATO website and search in the topics you're wanting to know. Go on YouTube, have a look at videos, search topics. So like one of the basic videos I've got on my channel is talking about tax on a second job. So now this is my first live, so I will try and work out a way I can link that up. But when you're doing something like that, that's a really basic video I've done talking about something that will quite often affect younger people. So when they're younger, quite often they might pick up that second job and they want to know how the tax works on that. So rather than just wait until the end of the year and go to your accountant and potentially not really get an explanation because they're just trying to do a service for you, why don't you look into that, do some research? Like I said, I'll find that video for you. But that's the kind of things I do. When you come across things and you're not sure on, okay, well, how does that work? Go on, learn a bit about it, and then that'll just start your knowledge base. That's the best way to learn, is as things come up, think of questions that you want to do and search them. So let me see if I can work out how to send a link across here. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that link's going to work, but yeah, so I've got a link, like I said, talking about that. And yeah, I think it's a great thing to do, is just start searching things up. YouTube is great. There's lots of free information out there. Always make sure you're getting it from someone that is actually qualified in the space. So you don't want to be getting too much tax advice from people that aren't tax agents or accountants. And you've got to remember that when people are giving advice on YouTube, like a lot of what I talk about, that's to a broad public. So like I said, it's not going to necessarily be customized to you, but it just gets your brain ticking over, and then you can start doing further research more in depth into certain topics. So hope that's kind of helped a bit there. We've got another question here. So coming into tax time, do I need to have a face-to-face to have my tax done as a busy? So no, I don't think you do need to have face-to-face appointments to get your tax returns done these days. So I know I do a lot of my tax returns online, which makes it a lot easier because I can deal with people at a time that suits them. At the end of the day, I'm trying to provide a service to people, and I know that people are busy. I know what it's like when I'm trying to organise appointments for myself, is that you're trying to rush around, do them on lunch breaks, or then the only other time you're available is after work hours, which obviously doesn't always suit because a lot of people aren't then working, businesses are closed, so you can't get appointments. So that's a great thing about the modern world, and that's why I've built my practice all based on cloud accounting, because I want to be able to serve people anywhere, anytime, and that means I can serve them in a time and a way that suits them best. So I've done plenty of tax returns last year for clients at 10 o'clock at night over Facebook Messenger, a lot of the conversations. So there's lots of different ways that you can engage with your accountant, and it doesn't have to be that old school face-to-face appointment. That can work, and in some situations, I love getting in front of a client, having a chat with them, but that's not always necessary. It's not vital these days because there's lots of other ways you can engage with clients and engage with professional services. So have a chat to your accountant about what ways that they may do it. And obviously, a bit of what we spoke about before is that when people are learning to do their own taxes, they may be able to do it themselves through some of the online methods as well. But if they get stuck with some of those things and go, you know what, I want a professional to step in, nowadays that they can get that professional to step in then and there and help them with it. So that's a great way to do it. So yeah, if anyone else has some questions, make sure you drop them in the comments. So I'll just have a few more. Something else I did want to talk about that I have been doing in the cryptocurrency space. So now, again, I'm playing around with how this whole live stream thing works, but I've actually brought up some packages that I'm going to be offering to clients. So I'll talk about it more in a few videos coming up, but I thought I'd just touch on that, on packages that I can offer for people to do with crypto tax. So I'll just see if I can share my website here, but we'll see how that goes. Let's have a look here. So I might be able to share this with you. Yeah, so I've got a few packages here. I hope you can see it. Leave a comment if you could to let me know if you can. So on my website here, I've got some packages for crypto tax. So I've got a bronze package, which is just pretty much to do your tax return for your cryptocurrency capital gains and your cryptocurrency income. Now, obviously, that's going to rely on you calculating your gains and calculating your income kind of thing. And I'll kind of punch that into the tax return and just give you a little bit of guidance there on potentially how to calculate that. I then got a silver package here, which is more in depth because I then have one meeting with you per year. And that's normally between April and June to discuss tax planning. So having a bit of idea of where you're at, what strategies we could put in place before the 30th of June, and maybe it might be to do with some timing of some sales or things like that. And then the other one is a gold package, which is where we do that again, and we also might catch up another time depending on when you're looking to sell some stuff. So that's that pre-capital gains calculations, and talk to you about whether that's a good idea to sell now, whether it's going to be better off to sell in the next financial year. But then also looking at that from a point of view that, which I spoke to a client about the other day, is that it's not always a great idea to sell just for tax purposes, because if the market drops and you feel like this is the time to sell, there's no point saving $50 of tax but losing $100 in gains. So yeah, that's the other option I do. So I just wanted to quickly share that one with you. So yeah, that's just some of the things I'm planning on offering going forward. So yeah, if you're needing any help with that kind of things, get in touch with me. So yeah, a couple other things. So like I said, we're coming up to tax time. So I'll be hopefully, like I said, doing these videos, getting some more questions fed in beforehand. And I can talk about some tax planning tips. So some strategies you can put in place regarding deductions, things like super. Obviously, I can't give you too much advice as such on super, but I can just give you an idea of, look, how that works and what some of your timeframes are. So talking about, look, can you make a personal contribution and things like that, and talking about how that would affect your tax return. Then you've got things like what deductions do you need to bring forward before then, and which ones might not benefit you. So it sounds strange, but I see a lot of people and they come in with a receipt and they go, oh, I bought a new computer this financial year, I can claim it. And they rush it in and they get it before the 30th of June. I need to find out that item's going to be depreciated, and they may get 1 day of claim if they bought it on 30th of June. So these are just things that people might not understand, that you've got to have that awareness before 30th of June, because sometimes it's too late after 30th of June. There's not a lot that I could do as an accountant, especially in an individual tax return, after 30th of June. So you kind of need to know these things beforehand. So I want to do videos talking about those kind of things because I feel like that's really important. So make sure you keep an eye out, because I will do some actual proper videos on my channel about that. And I will do some lives as well, because I think that'll be really beneficial, because yeah, this is something I really enjoy doing. The Q&A kind of stuff really opens it to questions that I don't think of. I try and think of ideas for videos, but sometimes when someone throws a question at me, that is heaps better for me. So it allows me to go really in depth, and I really enjoy that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then obviously I will do some tax tip videos. I'll do some short videos. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram, make sure you head over there. It's just Ethan Rushock, as per my name on YouTube. And go over there because I'll be doing videos on there. And also check out my business page on there, which is Rushock Accounting. So I'll do some tax tips, like short bits and pieces on there. And I also do bits and pieces on my Facebook pages. So again, Ethan Rushock, Rushock Accounting, head over there, follow them. And while I remember that, if you haven't subscribed to me on YouTube, which considering we've had between 6 and 8 viewers, I'm hoping most of you are subscribed. But if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button because, yeah, the more people we can get on here, the more engagement, the more questions that get asked, and hopefully that provides more value to more people. So, and the other thing I want to do is hopefully get some guests on here. So this is my first time of actually trying a live stream, but I know I've got the ability to have guests come on here. So if anyone else on here is doing any kind of personal finance talk and stuff like that, then make sure that they jump on and send me a message or something like that because I'd love to collaborate with different people. So what else have we got here? I'm glad that was able to help. Yep. So in Australia, like I said, check out the ATO site, check out some of my videos, definitely. I'm a bit biased there, but yeah, do that. But the ATO site is really good. There's a lot of, they revamped it a few years ago, and there's pretty much any question you can kind of think of. You can find the basics to it. You might not get the actual full-on in-depth tax law on there, but you're going to find the basics. And obviously the ATO are the one that apply a lot of these rules. So if you can get that right, have a look on there. It'll get you the basic knowledge. And like I said, the more basic knowledge you've got, the better you'll be that when you go to speak to other professionals or when you go to get your tax done, at least you've got some idea. And it'll help you gauge if the person you know, the person you're talking to actually knows what they're talking about. So there's nothing better than being able to challenge a professional if you know that that's not right. At least you've got an idea because you never know of if someone's giving you advice, you want to have an idea that advice is correct because unfortunately, not all advice you receive is going to be great. So thanks, Sue. I'm glad this has been informative to you. Yeah, I agree. There's a few Aussie financial YouTube channels out there, but I think the thing that I like coming from my point of view is that I work in the industry. So I'm working in obviously tax. So that's my specialty. So tax and accounting and business. But there's lots of people that aren't qualified in that talking it, which is great because it's great there's interest. But I'm trying to bring a different perspective of someone that works in it. And then I do find it really interesting to chat to some of these other that are obviously really passionate about it. So there's plenty of good channels out there that aren't necessarily professionals in the space, but they're so interested in personal finance and coming from an Australian point of view. So I love talking to them about why they're so invested in it and what has really brought them into that space that they've actually wanted to then share their knowledge with it. So it's great to see some of the channels that have gone on the journey of growing their channel, and they may be a physio in their professional career or a teacher, and different bits and pieces. So it's great that they're then making a finance channel. So yeah, it's really cool that that's happening. So yeah, definitely want to engage with more of them. And I've talked about doing some collabs. I haven't got around to it, but live streams may be the way to do it and engage them and find out more about their journey. So yeah, so that's a good one. I think an interview of what different people do to save, manage, and grow their financials. So yeah, that's something I have spoke to a few people about wanting to do some questions, but I would like to, that's a good point. I want to open it up to not just people that are running channels, but if anyone wants to jump on and do it, we can do a Zoom chat that I can record and just talk about what you're doing to save money, manage, and how you're looking at growing yourself financially. So just because you're not a finance person as such, you're not working in the industry, but there's plenty of people out there that are working their 9-to-5 jobs, but putting that money to good use and really growing a great way. So there's a lot of people in the FIRE community. So for those who don't realize, the Financial Independence Retire Early community that are working a range of different jobs that have got lots of different strategies on saving money, managing their money. So it might be budgeting and stuff like that, how they're investing, and then just general what their plans are, what their goals are. And there's lots of people that are retiring before the age of 40 with $1 million and enough passive income to get them through for the rest of their life that they can go live lives they want to do. So yeah, it's definitely something I want to do is talk to more people in the space. So it doesn't just have to be those that are running channels. I want to talk to anyone about that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been really good. I've really enjoyed this. We're hitting nearly the 30-minute mark, so I'll wrap things up in a minute. So I've got something here. I'd like to see a review of things like the Barefoot Investor and different strategies used for budgeting. So the great news is I've actually got a video on my channel. It's one of my earlier videos, a review of the Barefoot Investor. So head on there. I think it was probably about the 5th or 6th video I did. So I love the Barefoot Investor, sitting over there in my cupboard. Great book, recommend it to anyone. But yeah, definitely have a look at that. I've talked about what strategies I've implemented from the Barefoot Investor and then what I've changed up a bit. So I think that's a great thing with any of those kind of finance books is you can change things to mold them to your personal situation. But the Barefoot Investor is a really good book and it covers almost everything. And it covers, you could follow step by step in that. And I think a lot of people would be in a lot better financial position if they just did that than what they were doing currently. So yeah, good book. And yeah, again, different strategies for budgeting investing. I've got a video early on in my channel, wasn't too popular, but talking about how I've created a budget. So that's another thing people can check out. So have a look on my channel, have a look at some of the other YouTubers. I will, on the next live, I'll make sure I've got a list of some of the other personal finance YouTube channels that I follow, especially those with an Australian content. So I'll link up some of them during the video and talk about them. So I really appreciate everyone being here. I'm hoping to do this, like I said, it will be either Sunday or Wednesday. Keep an eye on my socials for an update on that. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you on the next video.